This is a comment about a presentation at the Standford AI Club. I think the most important takeaway from the presentation is that private information actually will gain in value. And I think this is a general statement that I find interesting because you can replace information with knowledge. So what that means is that you have this bifurcation of knowledge or information or both. I mean, let's call it knowledge just for simplicity. So the ability to do things or to predict things based on information which is not public, that relative value will go up. And I think this is really important because it is kind of one of the books in our principle stack is 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, and that's kind of what Peter Thiel is talking about. You know, this book was written a while ago, and he used different language, but what he's trying to say is that if you want to do something in life, you better do something that is actually not public, or in today's terms, that AI will not be able to master very quickly. And in this presentation, links in the show notes, actually he talks about what it takes to be good at AI and what the sort of roadblocks are. And one of them is the verification law, which is this idea that if you can verify fast, you can do better in AI. Of course, you also need data. So I'm going to talk about this a little bit in a more broader context as far as, let's say wealth creation is concerned, or running a hedge fund, or just your career in general. The purpose of this podcast is to give people a sense for what it feels like to run a hedge fund. So sometimes I think we talk about, specific things. Sometimes we talk about technical things. Sometimes we talk about global things. I think this is sort of in the crossroads of technicality, but also generality, like philosophy. Like if you're 18 years old and you're thinking about your career, what do you think about? And we spoke about this a while ago about leveraging the bitter lesson for your career. And I think this is in line. This is not in our podcast. It's October 20, 2025. This is Crim Delco for the year. We're up 15.6%. The market's up 13.5%. We're outperforming by 2.1%. So in this presentation, the author talks about the verification law. And then it just means that if you have tasks which are relatively easy to verify, and you scale it up with data, then AI will definitely conquer it. Software development, math, those types of things. So what does that mean? Of course, does that mean you should not do software anymore? Does that mean you should not do math anymore? Not at all. I think the corollary to that is just that you need to focus on private information, or to use 0 to 1 lingo, you need to focus on your proprietary knowledge, something that you uniquely bring to the table. You need to find your trajectory, your way to do math, your way to do software, your way to build a company, your way to design a product, because that's going to be actually relatively more valuable. People will strive for specific knowledge. And that's because the other knowledge, and this is part of the takeaway of the presentation, intelligence will be commoditized. So anything which is publicly available, anything which will scale with verification, any kind of task that is easily verifiable and scales with data. So in other words, anything you can Google and anything you know for sure, it's factually right or wrong, will be outsourced by AI. So you don't want to actually have a lot of skin in that kind of game. Where you want to have skin in the game is the opposite, things that are hard to verify. So for example, and that now brings me to the meat of this episode, the hedge fund business is actually like that. People talk a lot about financial markets, and I think they confuse two things. There is a big community of algo traders, people who use mathematics to predict markets. What they do is they do very short-term predictions. They look at data like stock market data or any kind of price data, and they do what's called Solomon-off induction. So they basically guess what kind of model best predicts the next sequence of data. And then over time, they can actually do all these things, verify very fast. They have a lot of data. So AI is going to become better at these tasks, and therefore algo trading will actually do well, and it is doing well. But that is not the kind of business we're in. The hedge fund business, the wealth creation business, is the kind of business where we do the exact opposite. So We look at things that are very proprietary. We have a very unique view of the way we think about the world. I would say nobody actually shares our view. I mean, there's a few people that share our view, Richard Sutton, Elon Musk, Jensen Huang, those types of people, but not, most people on Wall Street, most people in Silicon Valley, they don't share our view. And sometimes we're wrong and they're right. I mean, it's not, but we're just, we're betting on very, very specific, kinds of knowledge that will hopefully proliferate us into wealth creation. So this is what the presenters are actually trying to say. Like, if you have a task which is very hard to verify, such for example, our strategy in terms of investing, it is very hard to verify. It takes years to be verified. There's no daily or hourly or minutely type of verification. You can't constantly, you can verify, even quarterly, it's hard to verify. There are certain metrics that we use, of course. For example, in the case of Tesla, the progress of FSD, we look at the way they're launching robotaxi. We look at the way they're training Optimus. We look at their strategy in terms of end-to-end training, which are all very important aspects. We spoke about this yesterday. Like, we want to invest in a company that is building a flywheel, not a company which has a ready AI system. We actually want to invest in a company which has the mindset of building a flywheel for AI, which is using, for example, counterfactuals to train a robot, and therefore invests in something like a simulation engine, or like Sergey Levin says, counterfactual engine to be able to iterate over many epochs and train let's say a robot. So that's the kind of thing we focus on, and as long as that's given, I think we're fine. Now, there is a potential for an AI to take our history over the last 17 years and mimic what we did, and maybe use a couple of similar funds and then learn, maybe through a reinforcement algorithm, what we did. But the problem is, of course, this AI cannot predict the future of knowledge, and therefore we'll have a very hard time going forward from now, going forward. But there are certain things that it can do. So it's not impossible, but very, very hard to do. AI will not replace the wealth creation business anytime soon. So this idea of, so let's summarize what the person said in this presentation. So intelligence will be commoditized. The verifies law, and there's a jagged trajectory of AI. I think the last one is kind of self-evident. Like, you have people on the East Coast who underestimate the potential of AI, and you have people on the West Coast who underestimate the institutional barriers that are being set to AI. So those are the that's the idea of jagged. The fact that intelligence will be commoditized, I think that's a bigger statement than people actually assign it to. Here's why. Because when you have access to verifiable knowledge, such as math, coding, like a lot of the value added that people do in their work is actually exactly that. So that will replace definitely a lot of people in their jobs. It has social implications, but for wealth creation implications, again, the most important thing is the verifies law, which is that you want to focus on private information. Private information, I talk about private information, I mean legal private information. I'm not talking about inside information in the stock market. I'm talking about, getting your own, like let's say us, going to academic conferences where usually there's only PhDs and professors, and then talk to them and make the effort, and often sound stupid and ask, presumably stupid questions, but learn through that. Most of the conferences we go to, there's not one person from Wall Street. There's occasionally a VC there. So very few finance people are there. But then we also do care a lot about finance. We actually do care a lot about how robotaxi will be launched and what the financials are and what the models are. So we're not neglecting it, but I think that the unique perspective of finance, technology, academia, that is kind of where we sit. And I think that is very unique. And the value of private knowledge will only go up. And the same applies to if you want, if you're studying now at university, or if you're just out of grad school and you're looking for your job, or maybe first full-time job or something like that, build specific private knowledge that you can't get on your, on the tip of your fingertips through AI. Like, compete with AI. Like, your competition is scalable, verifiable knowledge. Like, don't be in a business like that. Whether it's as a hedge fund manager, don't invest in companies that are growing with scalable, verifiable knowledge. For example, banks, um, uh, most consumer goods companies, they use the same type of marketing strategies, the same type. They use ChatGPT for marketing collateral, all that kind of stuff. Like it has to be unique. Whether it's technology, sometimes it could be strategy. Like, in other words, maybe it's not, Lululemon, for example, is a company that we used to like a lot in the past, not anymore, but they came with something incredibly interesting, new concept. There was some technology involved, but it wasn't terribly technologically driven. It wasn't an engineering company like SpaceX. But it had its perks. So again, summarize, very inspirational talk. Stanford AI Club. Three points that he makes. One is intelligence will be commoditized. Second, verify as well. And third, that you have a jagged trajectory of AI. Thank you.